It's 7 p.m. Friday, June 21st, here in Seoul.
And these are the top stories at this hour. Chinese President Xi Jinping heads back home after his two-day state visit to North Korea. We bring you what you need to know on what he did there and what was said in his meeting with leader Kim Jong-un.
President Moon Jae-in replaces two of his top aides related to economic affairs and policy amid slumping growth and poor employment figures.
Alarm bells ring for Korea's exports, with outbound shipments set to fall for the 7th month in a row.
And U.S. President Donald Trump approves military strikes on Iran after the downing of a U.S. drone near the Persian Gulf, but calls them off at the last minute. News Center begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center. Live from Seoul, I'm Han Daeun.
And I'm Noah Adam. Thank you as always for joining us this evening. Only one place to start, really. Chinese President Xi Jinping has wrapped up his trip to North Korea. That included talks with leader Kim Jong-un and visits to several symbolic sites.
For more, we have our Oh Jung-hee joining us from Seoul's Unification Ministry. Jung-hee, not much is unveiled about their meeting today, but what have you heard so far?
Hey guys, in fact, we're hearing that Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Beijing right now as we speak at around 3:30 Korea time. That's roughly 4 hours ago. Chinese President Xi Jinping left for China with his wife and with several of his key aides. This is the only update actually we've heard so far throughout the day. Neither of North Korean nor Chinese media have reported about what the leaders did in Pyongyang, but we actually do have a rough idea. So if things went as scheduled, then we're expecting that China's Xi Jinping pay tribute to the North Korea-China Friendship Tower in Pyongyang. This tower is a symbol of North Korea-China bilateral relations, as it was built in 1959 to commemorate Chinese soldiers who died fighting in the Korean War. China's high-level government officials have often visited the tower when visiting the North, including Xi Jinping himself in 2008 when he was China's vice president. North Korea's Kim Jong-un and President Xi could have had additional summit talks today along with a luncheon. If they did have those talks, then the topics would have been mainly about their bilateral ties and Korean Peninsula issues, of course. As with their previous 4 summits when Kim Jong-un visited China, the two leaders have continued their summit into the following day. Xi Jinping arrived in Pyongyang on Thursday afternoon and received a fervent welcome from North Korea, which mobilized some 250,000 citizens to cheer him as he made his way to the guest house. The Chinese leader held a summit and a banquet with Kim Jong-un and watched a group gymnastics performance later in the evening. In fact, North Korea state media has put a lot of emphasis on Xi's visit, saying it's a, quote, critical opportunity to show off their unchangeable and undefeatable friendship. This is the first visit by a Chinese leader to North Korea in 14 years and a 5th summit between Kim and Xi since 2018. The summit comes as Pyongyang and Beijing celebrate 70 years of their diplomatic ties this year. That's really all I have for now, but I'll make sure to bring you more updates as we learn them. Back to you guys.
Our Oh Jung-hee at the Unification Ministry for us tonight. Thank you. Well, not much has been revealed about what was discussed between Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un today. There were some noteworthy remarks during their meeting yesterday. Our Oh Soo-young walks us through the key points made by the two leaders.
During North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's first summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Pyongyang, Kim expressed his frustration with the currently stalled denuclearization talks with the United States. According to China's state-run CCTV, Kim said the regime has been taking lots of active measures first to ease the tension in the region over the past year, but it hasn't received positive responses from the party concerned, which is not what the North wants to see. The party concerned being the U.S. However, Kim added that the North remains patient, while hoping Washington will work with Pyongyang to find solutions that accommodate each other's legitimate concerns and push for results from the dialogue process. Kim also reportedly said the North highly appreciates the important role China has played in solving the Korean Peninsula issue, adding Pyongyang will continue working and communicating with Beijing to move towards a political settlement. To that, Chinese President Xi Jinping said the issue is highly sensitive and complex, and a strategic and long-term perspective is required. Xi also expressed his full support for Kim by saying that China is willing to provide assistance within its capacity to address North Korea's legitimate security and development concerns. The North has said it is willing to give up its nuclear program once and for all if its security assurance is guaranteed. Xi also hinted at his willingness to play a larger role in the current talks by saying that Beijing will work with Pyongyang as well as other relevant parties to play a positive and constructive role in achieving the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and long-term stability in the region. The two leaders also mentioned their strong friendship and how they will work to improve North Korea's economy and well-being. After their meeting, the two leaders took part in a welcome banquet where they once again reiterated that dialogue is the solution to settling the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. After the banquet, the two first couples watched a mass gymnastics performance. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Pyongyang on Thursday morning, and Kim showed great hospitality and respect by greeting Xi at the airport and taking him to the Kumsusan Taeyang-gongjeon, the regime's forefathers' resting place. 오수영, Arirang News.
All eyes were fixed on the Kim-Xi summit, with their meeting making headlines all across the globe. According to experts, both Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping appear to have attained what they wanted, although nothing dramatic came out of the summit in resolving the current nuclear deadlock. Our Lee Ji-won has more.
The broad contents of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Chinese President Xi Jinping's summit have been revealed, and much of their message is similar to what they've said previously.
Though not everything has been revealed, I think what came out was rather theoretical and repetitive. There should have been some comments on how the two leaders promised to seek a new solution in the denuclearization issue for this to become a turning point for the stalled nuclear talks. But Kim's message was again how it's now the United States' turn to take action and that the door to dialogue is still open.
However, some observers say there are a couple of things to note, such as China's plan to play a bigger role in the negotiations.
Both sides emphasize how China will play a more active role in the talks, so that's something to look out for. And one of the things Kim mentioned is the North's new strategic line through which it seeks to learn from China in developing the economy and improving people's livelihoods, so I'm expecting to see more attempts at possible exchanges.
Now, as much as the summit was seen as a strategic card used by both sides, the experts say the two sides got what they wanted out of it.
I'd say both sides got what they wanted. Kim showed how the North is not totally isolated from the world, reiterated that it has China's support on denuclearization, and opened up the possibility for economic support. Kim also raised his status in front of his people. China also showed its influence over the North, which could use as leverage in its meeting with President Trump at the G20.
Amid the different analysis on the rare summit, observers say it remains to be seen how this meeting shifts the discussion on the Korean Peninsula issue, as many other summits are lined up next week, including the G20 Summit and the meeting between Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, many analysts believe President Xi gained a solid bargaining chip from North Korea to gain leverage over the U.S. in trade talks. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, could further cement his grip on power through the Chinese leader's visit. For further analysis on their summit, I'm happy to be joined by Dr. Myunghyun, Research Fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure.
According to Chinese media, Kim Jong-un stated that he will be patient with the U.S. when it comes to the nuclear issue. How do you interpret this?
Well, I think this is like a reaffirmation of what Kim Jong-un has said before earlier this year when he stated that he will be waiting until the end of the year for President Trump to change his attitude towards North Korea, essentially change the present American negotiation approach, which is one grand bargaining, in which North Korea would have to unilaterally disarm first, to something that North Korea finds more likable to their position, which is a step-by-step approach. So I think this is the reaffirmation of what he has said before. And I think at the same time, it puts the ball on the American side. I mean, by saying that North Korea is willing to be patient, it's expressing its actually willingness and commitment to stick to dialogue, whereas the United States hasn't really made that such a strong commitment yet.
Now, Xi Jinping has reportedly vowed to help North Korea with its security and development needs. What kind of help do you think President Xi is talking about there?
Okay, there are two sides to this. I mean, Xi Jinping mentioned the security side and the development side. Security is clearly referring to the multilateral approach to negotiating over the North Korea's nuclear crisis. This came out during the earlier summit between Putin, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un in Vladivostok. There, Putin actually stated that Russia was willing to help North Korea to feel more secure in the world by extending some sort of a security guarantee. So I think China is also making the similar commitment to North Korea. On the other hand, on the development side, China has already mentioned, actually last year, the possibility of inviting North Korea to the Belt and Road Initiative. So I think, conditional upon the peaceful resolution to the ongoing nuclear crisis, I think China is willing to extend North Korea a major influx of investments.
Now, in recent years, North Korea's denuclearizations were made mainly by the two Koreas and the United States, although not much progress has been made on that. Through Xi's visit, though, we can see that China clearly wants to get back in the game. What role, if any, or will China play a bigger role in the process other than just being Pyongyang's longtime ally?
Well, China was has always been a large presence, looming behind the scenes. I mean, we know that Kim Jong-un visited China 4 times, while he met with President Moon in South Korea only 3 times. So we know that China has always been playing a role behind the scenes. But at the same time, a more active role for China in this situation has pros and cons. On the beneficial side, China can act as a stabilizing force. If the ongoing negotiation between Washington and Pyongyang doesn't pan out, then China can step in and guarantee some sort of a stability in the region. But on the other hand, the downside of a more active role for China is that China actually brings into the game a geostrategic issue, not with North Korea, but with the United States, which is actually multidimensional, involving trade, technological transfers, and human rights issues and all that. So in that sense, it complicates the picture for the ultimate resolution of the problem in the Korean Peninsula. So I think there are pros and cons, and then whether we have the upside rather than the downside will depend on how China manages its role.
One final question for you, Dr. Ko. The U.S. State Department, while all this is going on, the U.S. State Department has designated North Korea and China as some of the worst human trafficking nations in the world. This comes just a day after Washington sanctioned a Russian firm for helping North Korea evade financial sanctions. What do these moves tell you about Washington's stance at the moment?
Well, it's very interesting because last year, the report on the human trafficking actually is issued by the State Department every year. And the last year it was issued around a week from now, this time. So it means like end of June. So I think the State Department issued this report a week earlier to time it with the release of another announcement about additional sanctions on a Russian firm that was aiding North Korea to evade sanctions. So clearly the United States government is trying to send a message to both China and North Korea that there are multiple ways that the United States can punish China and North Korea if they don't stick to this, roadmap of denuclearization that the United States prefers.
Yeah, so not entirely coincidental. The timing has been kind of strategically played.
Clearly, timing I think has been
okay. Like that. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Go. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for you at the moment. We will like to hear from you soon. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Now, the list of high-level participants at the meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Thursday are also grabbing the spotlight. And as Korean Hee explains, the high-ranking North Korean figures could suggest that as well as politics, the two sides also discussed economic cooperation.
Other than denuclearization, the list of attendees at the Kim-Xi Summit suggests that the two sides discussed about economic issues as well. According to China's state-run CCTV, participants included Choi Ryong-hae, the first vice chairman of the State Affairs Commission, and Premier Kim Jae-ryong. Amid tightening international sanctions, Kim Jong-un has emphasized the importance of economic development by pursuing self-rehabilitation, and Choi is tasked with putting those plans into action. Premier Kim Jae-ryong has been also working to resolve economic difficulties and improve people's livelihoods. Other than the summit attendees, another person in the spotlight was Chairman Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong. Video footage from Thursday hints that her pull within the regime appears to have strengthened in recent months. Kim Yo-jong, who also serves as a senior Workers' Party official, was the seventh person in a line of key figures that shook hands with President Xi when he arrived at the airport. Standing next to her was high-ranking General Kim Young-chul. This is different from Kim Yo-jong's previous role when she was in charge of protocol, usually appearing before the official schedule. For instance, prior to the North Korea-U.S. Summit in February in Hanoi, she took care of preparations at Dongdang Station in Vietnam before Kim Jong-un appeared in front of the crowd. Her elevated role within the regime's power structure was strongly implied earlier this month, when North Korea expressed condolences to South Korea over the death of former First Lady Lee Hee-ho. Kim Yo-jong came to the inner Korean Truce village of Panmunjom to hand over flowers and messages to South Korean security officials. She was escorted by bodyguards, confirming her high status considering the deputy directors generally aren't protected by guards. As for Kim Yo-jong's replacement in terms of protocol, Hyun Song-wol, who heads the North Samjeon Orchestra, was at the airport for President Xi's arrival. She was spotted with Kim Chang-sun, Kim Jong's protocol chief. Korean, Arirang News.
As the leaders of North Korea and China wrap up their summit in Pyongyang, a new U.S. report places North Korea and China among the world's worst offenders of human trafficking. The State Department's Trafficking in Persons report was released on Thursday. North Korea has made the list for the 17th straight year. Lee Seung-jae reports.
In the annual Trafficking in Persons report released by the U.S. State Department on Thursday, the U.S. designated North Korea as one of the worst human trafficking nations for the 17th consecutive year. The report details abuses by the Pyongyang government, including its forced mobilization of adults and school children to work in factories and other sectors, and its egregious human rights violations that can fuel trafficking in neighboring China. The designation was given due to the fact that North Korea does not fully meet the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking and is not making significant efforts to do so. The report added the government continues state-sponsored human trafficking through forced labor in mass mobilizations of adults and children in prison camps as part of an established system of political repression in labor training centers and through its exportation of forced labor to foreign companies. During the report's launch ceremony on Thursday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo slammed the regime, saying Pyongyang subjects its own citizens to forced labor both at home and abroad, and then uses proceeds to fund what he called nefarious activities. Along with North Korea, the State Department's latest report also named China, Iran, and Russia among other nations in the lowest Tier 3 category. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A UN expert on human rights issues in North Korea, Thomas Oheo Quintana, who is visiting Seoul this week, praised Seoul's recent moves to provide humanitarian aid to Pyongyang and called for more international efforts to ease food shortages in the north.
We discussed the importance of the peace process in the interKorean negotiations, and I reiterated the need to bring North Korean human rights concerns for the negotiation framework. I welcomed the decision for release to North Korea the pledged humanitarian aid, which should never be subject to politicization.
He was referring to Seoul's decision earlier this week to provide 50,000 tons of rice as food aid via the World Food Programme. That was on top of a previously announced $8 million donation. This is Quintana's sixth mission to Seoul, and his findings to the UN General Assembly is slated for October. South Korea has told North Korea that an interKorean summit is necessary and desirable ahead of a Seoul-Washington summit scheduled for later this month. A ruling party lawmaker said Seoul's Unification Minister Kim Hyun-chul made the remarks at a closed-door meeting at the National Assembly earlier today. This comes after President Moon Jae-in recently said he hopes to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un before President Trump's visit to Seoul next week. The minister added the government will review the outcome of the North Korea-China summit, saying that Beijing has always played a key role whenever nuclear talks hit a stumbling block. In other news, President Moon Jae-in has replaced 2 of his top aides, appointing new officials to serve as his Chief of Staff and Top Secretary for Economic Affairs. This comes amid various concerns over the slowing economy, compounded by external risks such as the US-China trade spat. Our Park Hee-jun with more.
As his administration enters its 3rd year in power, President Moon Jae-in has replaced 2 of his top aides in hopes of creating concrete economic results. The Cheongwade announced Friday that Kim Sang-jo, who served as the chair of the Fair Trade Commission, will replace Kim Soo-yeon as the new presidential chief of staff. Blue House spokesperson Ko Min-jung explained that Kim was named mainly for his contributions in establishing a fair economy at his previous post. Creating a fair economy is one of the 3 pillars of the Moon administration's economic drive, along with income-led growth and innovative growth. Introducing himself to the public, Kim vowed to try and make policies that can be felt by the whole nation.
I will also listen to the voices of businesses, laborers, and civil society and work to create tangible outcomes for the people.
The first Vice Minister of Economy and Finance, Lee Ho-seung, will also replace Yoon Jong-un as Senior Secretary to the President for Economic Affairs. The Blue House anticipates he will play a big role in reviving the domestic economy amid growing economic uncertainty stemming from the US-China trade war, among other factors.
I will do my best to support the President's policies of sustained economic and social development alongside innovation and engagement.
The simultaneous reshuffle of the 2 top economic control towers is a rare move by the Blue House, especially as their predecessors are leaving without having stayed for more than a year. Kim Soo-yeon was appointed Chief of Staff last November, while Yoon Jong-un was appointed last June. The replacements reflect the government's determination to go all in to revive the economy. The new appointees are expected to continue pushing President Moon's key economic policies forward while providing momentum to boost the sluggish economy. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in will be visiting Japan for 3 days, starting next Thursday for the G20 Summit in Osaka.
President Moon will stress the need for international cooperation and policy coordination in stabilizing the global financial system and easing trade frictions, and plans to explain the government's push to build an innovative and inclusive nation and its peace efforts on the Korean Peninsula.
During his stay there, the top office said the president is scheduled for bilateral meetings with the leaders of China, Russia, Canada, and Indonesia. As for a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the Blue House added that it is keeping the door open, but said nothing has been finalized. South Korea's export growth is continuing to slow due to sluggish global demand and unresolved U.S.-China trade friction. Our Kim Hae-sung reports.
South Korea's exports are on track to fall for the 7th consecutive month. The Korea Customs Service said Friday exports between June 1st and June 20th fell 10% on year to $27 billion. Automobile and shipbuilding exports rose, but outbound shipments of semiconductors and petrochemical goods fell sharply by 24% and 22% respectively. By region, exports to the U.S. and the EU ticked higher, but exports to China, Korea's #1 trading partner, tumbled over 20%. Exports to Japan, Vietnam, and the Middle East also fell. Another set of data released by the Trade Ministry Friday shows Korea's exports of ICT products, including chips and mobile phones, plunged 22.6% on year to $14.3 billion in May.
Markets were expecting a rebound in chip prices and demand in the latter half of the year, but with continuing trade tensions between the U.S. and China and growing uncertainties, companies have postponed their investment in facilities and data centers, so demand for ICT goods is unlikely to rise soon.
Spot prices of 4-gigabit DRAM chips fell to $2 in May, down from $3 in January. Semiconductor exports accounted for a fifth of Korea's total exports, topping the $100 billion mark last year. But with chip prices continuing to fall on slowing demand, worsening trade conditions, and sluggish global growth, Korea's exports could face more headwinds in the months ahead. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now to the latest on the escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. President Trump gave his approval to launch military strikes on Iran before calling them off at the last minute. This after Iran shut down a U.S. military drone, which it claimed was flying inside Iranian airspace. Our Kan Young-woo tells us more.
The U.S. was prepared to launch retaliatory strikes against Iran for shooting down one of its drones, but President Trump pulled them back at the 11th hour. This according to a report from the New York Times, which adds that Trump canceled the strikes Thursday night after hours of heated discussions at the White House among top U.S. national security officials and Congress leaders. Citing unnamed officials, the Wall Street Journal also reported that details of the mission and the reason for its sudden cancellation were unknown, but a military response in the future has not been ruled out. Earlier in the day, President Trump said Iran probably made a mistake and that he finds it hard to believe the downing of the U.S. drone was intentional.
I think they made a mistake, and I'm not just talking the country made a mistake. I think that somebody under the command of that country made a big mistake.
Are you still talking to Iran's leadership?
Let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens. It's all going to work out.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it shot down an intruding American spy drone, claiming that it was flying over the country's territorial waters, but U.S. officials are insisting that it was shot down in international airspace. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran have been escalating, with Washington blaming Tehran for a series of attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman. Iran also announced that it will soon surpass the limit of its enriched uranium stockpile that was set under a 2015 nuclear deal that Washington has pulled out of. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
A well-known South Korean travel writer was found dead in the Philippines on Sunday. The Korean police announced today that Chu Young-uk was found dead beside a road in the northern Philippine city of Antipolo. Chu's hands had been tied behind him and he had been shot in the forehead. His identity was confirmed by local police on Tuesday when a hotel key was discovered during his autopsy. Korean police and a team from the Korean embassy in Manila have been sent to investigate the killing. Chu, who worked as a travel columnist and ran a travel agency, arrived in Manila last Friday to develop more travel packages. He is the 54th Korean killed in the Philippines since 2012. Korean police have advised tourists to the Philippines to keep their belongings safe and to avoid unfamiliar places at night. Many Koreans are becoming more concerned over the safety of consumer products, especially after several mattresses were found to have contained radioactive material. This has led them to go the extra mile for products that have been proven to be safe, even if they cost a bit more. Our Kim Da-mi takes a closer look at the latest consumption trend.
Paying for peace of mind, meaning consumers are willing to spend more on products that are proven safe, especially in the era of distrust in production and manufacturing. This local chicken franchise fries only 58 portions of chicken with each batch of oil to reassure customers that their chicken is cooked with clean, fresh oil. This is the 45th portion of chicken that's been fried using this oil. And after 13 more portions, the old oil will be replaced. Each portion of chicken is served with a sticker that indicates how many times the oil it was fried in has been used. The sticker is more than just a number to the customers.
I've heard some chicken places only replace their oil once every 3 or 4 days, but just knowing they use new oil after every 58 portions gives us peace of mind, especially when we're eating it.
Consumers are even more careful when shopping for what they spend 1/3 of their life on, mattresses. After the radon-emitting mattresses scandal occurred in South Korea last year, safety concerns and complaints related to mattresses rocketed over 700% compared to the previous year. Responding to the deep concerns and mistrust among consumers, a bedding company has publicized its mattress lab where people can actually see and experience how their mattresses are made, a chance for potential buyers to see that its ads are not misleading or false.
I'm a newlywed looking for a new bed for a new home. Because I can see how my bed is produced, I can tell that it's safe. Mattresses are quite expensive, but I've decided to invest in one after the tour today.
Consumers have learned to spend their money more consciously and carefully, but this consumption trend should also remind the marketing and manufacturing industries that it is their job to be transparent and earn consumers' trust. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
South Korea's Justice Ministry says a record 16,000 people filed for refugee status last year, a whopping 63% on-year jump. Kazakhstani people made up the largest number of applicants, followed by Russians and Malaysians. But only 658 applicants were granted either refugee status or permission to stay in the country on humanitarian grounds. The number of asylum seekers has been increasing since 2013, following a new refugee law. Amid concerns icy Seoul-Tokyo relations might lead to an increase in tariffs by Japan, a recent report shows such a move would negatively affect South Korea's exports, the lifeblood of the local economy. The Korea Economic Research Institute says that if Japan imposes 30% higher tariffs from the current level, South Korea's exports to its neighbor would drop by almost 8%, with optical devices taking the biggest hit. South Korea has started free trade talks with Russia for the service and investment sectors as it looks to diversify its export portfolio amid growing protectionism around the world. The negotiations are the latest in a series of efforts by Seoul to expand its FTA networks and reduce its trade dependency on the US and China. The discussions are also part of Korea's so-called New Northern Policy that aims to boost ties with Eurasian countries. An annual contest for foreigners to share ideas and content related to Korea is now underway. Organised by the Foreign and Culture Ministries, Talk Korea will collect videos, photos, illustrations or webtoons in 6 categories that fit this year's theme of Korea lovers. 126 contents will be used to promote Korea online, and the top prize in each of the 6 categories is a 5-day trip to the country. The deadline for submissions is August 29th. That has been your 3-minute news flash.
It's been cloudy all day, and finally Seoul has started to see rain.
That's right, and I hear a lot of rain is in store. Let's get more on the details of the weather from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. The rain clouds have been developing all day today, and now they are going to drench the nation all night as they travel southeast. Now, from the capital right down to Gyeongsang provinces, there will be between 5 and 20 millimeters of rain, but there is also chances of hail and thunderstorms too. And tonight's rain will dissipate by midnight, bringing out sunny skies in Seoul tomorrow. However, more rain is in store if you are in the southern areas. And also, as in Tokyo, where light rain is expected early on, then it will remain cloudy with showers in the afternoon. And Saturday morning will mostly begin in the high teens. Seoul will be waking up to 18 degrees Celsius. Now, where it's sunny, the weather is going to be scorching hot, or topping out to 29 degrees Celsius, and where there's rain is expected to remain on the cool side. Now, the nation will receive more widespread showers on Sunday. Now, there will be sunny skies early next week, and it's time for monsoon rain starting from the south. I'll leave you with weather conditions around the world.
That wraps up this edition of Arirang News. Thank you as always for watching.
News in Depth is next.